What's up, everybody, and welcome to episode 156 of the Stand Up Guys podcast. I'm your host, incomparable Zach Jones, joined as always by star of the porn parody, the Goo Beetle, where he plays the lead role of Hyman Gayass, the phenomenal Jason.
Not that there's anything wrong with that.
Listen, they can't all be winners. That was a hard one to even make a name out of. I didn't know what to do.
Blue Skeetle.
You know what? That probably would have been better. I was thinking maybe like the blue balls, but then I was like, nah, I don't know. So I went the laziest route possible. Well, if you guys couldn't guess, this is going to be our review of Blue Beetle. And for anyone, if you haven't watched or listened to any of our reviews, what we do is first just kind of a brief overview and spoiler-free review and impressions. But then what sets us apart is we're going to do a deep dive. We're going to do a nice scene-by-scene breakdown of the plot, go real in-depth. But yeah, just surface level, no spoilers here. AJ, what did you think of Blue Beetle?
I was surprised by how much I liked it. Like, it wasn't bad. It wasn't dull like I expect DC movies to be these days. It was full of life and color, and it was fun. I thought it lived up to higher than expectations for me.
Yeah, I don't know if it's because I went into it with like really low expectations. Because I think we talked about just like to me the trailers didn't look good, and it just kind of I was almost like lethargic going into this movie. Just like I guess we'll go. And I was pleasantly surprised. I certainly liked it more than I thought I would.
Yeah.
Now I don't know if like I loved it. I don't know like if I'll revisit this movie. If I do, it certainly won't be anytime soon. Mm-hmm. But I certainly liked it more than a lot of the more recent DC movies, which I know is like being the nicest guy in prison. But I certainly liked it more than The Flash, more than Shazam 2, more than Black Adam. I had at least some fun with it.
Yeah, without giving away spoilers, I think this movie had heart. And there's some other DC movies that didn't have that kind of heart. This one pulled on your heartstrings, and I bought into the story. I liked it.
Yeah, I mean, Shazam 2 definitely played with that idea of family.
Yeah.
But I thought this one did that probably a little better.
Yeah.
In my opinion. Mm-hmm. As far as the performances go, like the lead guy, I thought was pretty good. The only like Susan Sarandon is a great actress, but I thought her character was so shallow, so mustache twirling evil,
cookie cutter bad guy.
Yes, like that whole thing where it's like the best villains don't see themselves as villains,
right?
I think even she sees herself as a villain. Like, there's no depth to her character at all. It's just evil, evil, evil.
Well, there's a little bit I'll give her. Like, she did feel slighted when her brother got the company and she didn't, I guess. Something like that. So she felt like she had something to prove, like to force success into the company. She said that she's the one who built it up and all that stuff. So I get that that's her focus. But at the same time, like, she was pretty one-dimensional in that way.
Paper thin, yeah. What would you say? I mean, we usually do this in the spoiler-free section. If you were just going to give your base, recommendation, see this in theaters, wait for streaming, don't watch it all, what would you say?
I'm on the fence between see it in theaters and wait for streaming. It's a good time. If you go out and you want to see something and you just want to, kick it, I think you could go watch this movie for sure. And if you're strapped on time and you can't really get out, then wait for it. That's fine.
Personally, I'm a wait for streaming on this one. Mm-hmm. I think it's fine to watch it at home. I could definitely see like the Latino audience wanting to go out and support this
for sure.
And
I gotta say, it was nice to see like that representation in the movie. Like, I'm not Latino, but I appreciate it.
Yeah, it's all with these things. Like, that's never a selling point to me. It's just how well it does. It's like I like Black Panther because it was a good, good movie, But it's a plus that it's like a prominent, black superhero. And same with this, like just on the surface level, like I don't really care, but the fact that it was a decent movie.
That makes
too.
it like if it was a bad movie and then they had Latino, then that just wouldn't be good.
That would be a double negative. But I gotta say though, like. I don't know if they'll make another one of these. Did you like this well enough that you would want to see another one, or would your preference be that they start from scratch at Superman Legacy and not revisit this?
From what I understand, James Gunn is saying that Blue Beetle is going to be part of the moving forward DC universe.
Yeah, I know he had that interview with, is it Michael Rosenberg? Something like that. And like, I didn't listen to that interview, but like I heard that he said that like, Blue Beetle would kind of be like possibly the first like superhero of his new thing. I don't know if he's holding to that or not. And I don't know how well this movie's going to do in theaters either. Yeah,
I mean, I think expectations are kind of like, down like we were,
right.
But maybe it can pleasantly surprise people. I know the Rotten Tomatoes last time I checked was like 74 or 76% or something.
Yeah. Let me bring that up. I think it's at like a 76%.
And which is pretty good. I mean, I thought it was going to be, lower than my expectations.
It currently sits at a 76%.
Yeah, so not bad at all. I think it does depend on how well this movie does, but I'm not sure. Was he hands-on with this movie? Like, was this one of his creations?
No, this would have still been before he ever came aboard. Okay. I did notice that it says it's Saffron Productions, which is like his Peter Safran is that guy he's doing everything with. So apparently his production company had a hand in it. But, but no, this would have still been before James Gunn was really had input.
Because I thought it was pretty well done. I kind of thought he might have had some involvement. I would appreciate Blue Beetle being in the future of the DC universe. I think he was done pretty well, and I'm still curious about what he's capable of doing. And it'd be cool to see him in like a team up eventually or something.
I'm a bit indifferent on it, where like I like this enough to where if they did it, I'd be like, okay, we'll see what they can do. Yeah. But if they decide that this is a one and done, I'm okay with that too. Won't be crestfallen or anything. Yeah. I should run down that this movie, the cast lineup, and boy, if you ever wanted to hear a white guy butcher a bunch of Spanish names, hey, this is for you. Xolo Mariduena is Jaime Reyes. Adriana Barazza is Nana. Damian Alcazar is Alberto Reyes. That's his father. Elpidia Carrillo is Rocio Reyes, is his mother. Becky G is the voice of Kaji Da. I clicked on her name. Apparently Becky G became famous on YouTube, doing songs and like covers and stuff. And I had never heard of her. Yeah. We got Bruna Marquezine as Jenny Cord. Raoul Max Trujillo is Conrad Carapax. Suzanne Sarandon is Victoria Cord. George Lopez is Uncle Rudy. And Belissa Escobedo as Milagro Reyes, that's his sister. And then I thought this was funny, they put Harvey Gillen as Dr. Sanchez, which is just funny because as we find out in the movie, that's not his real character. Right. Hey, I will say, since we're still in spoiler free, is when I first saw the ads for this, I thought that George Lopez's character I might find annoying, but I actually ended up liking his character and thought he was kind of a standout in the movie. Yeah, I
appreciate his character. I appreciate the comedy, the humor. Even if it didn't always land, it was like still good enough.
Right, yeah. So I was pleasantly surprised by like his performance and inclusion in the movie. Any kind of surface thoughts before we get into spoilers?
Let's get into it.
Okay, guys. From this point on, it's full spoilers ahead. So if you don't want to be spoiled on Blue Beetle, this is your chance to turn away. But here we go. So AJ, we open on a helicopter that's carrying Victoria Cord to. I don't know if they ever specify where this is. It's some sort of Arctic region where it's like snowing and stuff. And there's a group of men that's led by Carapax. So this is where we're introduced to him. And he's working. They're basically working on cutting open this like large metal sphere, I guess, that they believe contains the Scarab. Yeah. I was kind of interested in the backstory of that, of like how it ended up there, how they found it.
How they know about it.
Yeah, but we never really get that information.
Yeah.
And this Carapax, like, he has like this metal arm and several metal implants. Now, one thing I'll say is, like we mentioned earlier, like Susan Sarandon is just a mustache twirling villain, nothing to her. They, towards the end of this movie, give this guy a little bit of depth, but by then it's almost like too late.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, oh, he had depth. We maybe would have cared more if you gave that to us earlier, but I don't know. So yeah, they're drilling to find the Scarab, and from that we move into the opening credits. And in this opening credit montage, we do like see like headlines of newspapers that gives us a little bit of context for the world. So we find out that both Dan Garrett and Ted Cord were previous versions of the Blue Beetle, and that Victoria became CEO of Cord Industries after Ted like mysteriously went missing or whatever. Now, I'll be honest, even though I read a lot of comics, I'm not super familiar with like the Blue Beetle mythos, but I did look up. So Dan Garrett was the first Blue Beetle in the comics. Okay. And I guess like originally, like I think he came out in like the 40s, and he was basically this basic kind of vigilante that didn't even have like any superpowers, and he just like dressed up as a beetle or whatever, you know, and fought crime. And then he was eventually acquired by Charleston Comics, who then in turn was acquired by DC eventually. And then, so he was basically relaunched in the 60s. And in that incarnation of him, he was like an archaeologist. And he finds a scarab like in Egypt or somewhere, you know. And it does kind of give him superpowers, but it's more of like a mythical thing than like the technology-based one in this movie. And the connection is apparently like he would say the word Kaji Da, and it would transform him, like give him powers when he said, kind of, yeah. Right. Yeah, so... And I've never read, I've kind of wanted to, but I've never read any of the Jaime Reyes Blue Beetle comics. So, like, I don't know if, like, they also named it Kaji Da, like they do in this movie in the comics. They maybe did, but that seems like where that comes from. And then when Ted Cord became the Blue Beetle, his was just, didn't involve the Scarab, it was just technology-based. Like, he was this really smart guy. He made Ted... Or Cord Industries or whatever, and became like rich, but he
like Batman.
Yeah, kind of like a Batman type character, and he made all these inventions and fought crime, you know. So, and then eventually he became like kind of a very lighthearted, jokey character. Him and Booster Gold had a lot of adventures together, Blue and Gold. You know? Okay, so after the opening credits, we're introduced to Jaime at Palmera City Airport. Now, I was curious about this too, because like, I guess in the comics, Jaime lives in like El Paso, Texas.
Oh, okay.
But for this, they decided not, probably because El Paso is just not very like scenic or
dusty,
visually,
boring, right.
visually interesting. So they created this Palmera City, which I believe is basically supposed to be an analog for Miami, Florida.
Okay.
I think
it looks like it.
Yeah. So he's returning home from college where he just graduated. And so now we're introduced to his family.
There was a street. I think he lived on El Paso Street.
Oh, did he?
Yeah, they showed the street.
Okay, that could be an homage to the comics then. So his family are getting ready to meet him at the airport. And they're talking that we get that they're withholding some sort of bad news from him, but they don't spill the beans right there. But anyway, he shows up and they greet him and everything. And so as they go outside, we're introduced to Uncle Rudy, played by George Lopez, and like he's this guy who's like very paranoid of the government.
Oh yeah,
thinks the government's always Big Brother's watching you.
Well, I think like they don't mention it per se, but like I think maybe some of them they're undocumented or something, so that's why they're nervous about it.
Yeah, actually, because later on in the movie, George Lopez has a conversation with him where he talks about when they were kids, like coming over at the age of 10 across the border or something, and then how like the next 20 years there were very tough or whatever. So yeah, I believe they are undocumented. Oh, at least the older ones.
Right.
Yeah. So that was, interesting. Rudy, he drives like his pride and joy pickup truck, which he calls Taco, I guess. Which is, I don't know, maybe a little bit weird.
Yeah, a little stereotypical. Did it do that sound? Did
they do that?
I don't remember.
I don't remember. They could have.
They might as well. Taco.
So they go to dinner, and at this dinner, they reveal the bad news to Jaime. The triple. Number one, they're losing their house, which to me I thought is funny, just because it's like the whole like, oh, we're gonna lose the farm type of like, classic like problem, like, oh, now we got to make money to keep it or whatever. Mm-hmm. Apparently, like their family owned an auto shop, and they also lost that.
Yeah, and
they kind of mentioned that, like, Cord Industries is big in this world, and it's like they're squeezing out all the mom and pop businesses, like they're the Amazon of this world or whatever, And also,
and even land wise, they're like pushing out like people from certain areas.
Yeah, that's another thing they message is like mention in a bit is like
that's why their rent got tripled.
Yeah, it seems like anytime the rich people, they want this part of town, they start squeezing the poor people out. And also, they were withholding that his dad had a heart attack. Which that one I thought was a little silly, because I'm like, really? They wouldn't have told him that his dad had a heart attack?
That's something you usually tell, like, right away.
Like, I had a hard time believing that one, and I'm like, okay, even if like the mother and grandmother didn't, I think his sister would have totally told him.
Well, I mean, look, if suspension of disbelief is an issue, there's going to be some problems coming up later on.
Yeah, I will say this movie, like all DC, well, really all superhero movies, there's some logic problems in this movie at times that we'll get to. So now we get a scene on the roof with Jaime and his sister. I will say I really did like their relationship.
Yeah.
A lot of good banter between them. I thought it seemed like a real relationship. I thought they had like good chemistry as a brother-sister, Yeah. So Jaime tells his sister that he will somehow, get a job and save the house and everything. And this is like you were mentioning. She talks because they're kind of in like the crappy part of town, and they're kind of looking at the bright lights and the skyscrapers of the city. And yeah, she mentions that, like, whenever the rich people, I think she mentions that, like, they wanted some land on the other side of the tracks somewhere else, and they ended up getting that land. And like the same thing's going to happen here. They're just going to squeeze out all the poor people and the brown people, that kind of thing. But yeah, Jaime says, he's got his degree, so he'll get a job, and within 5 years, they'll own not only their house, but a mansion and an infinity pool. So now we transition to a well-dressed Jaime in front of a pool, but it's revealed that, him and his sister, they got jobs working at like this swanky hotel. Yeah. So they happen to notice Victoria Cord like entering the hotel, and Jaime even like waves to her, and she just of course ignores him. Which really, why would she engage in conversation?
Like, what was he expecting to get out of that?
I know. So at the hotel, Victoria is met by her niece Jenny Cord, and so she plays this commercial where Victoria introduces OMAC suits. So this is another thing from the comics. OMAC, One Man Army Corps. And these are like suits that soldiers can wear basically to keep order in the world. So basically introducing this like fascist like element, Yeah. And so Jenny is upset that Cord Industries is making military applications because she knows that's not what her father would have wanted if he was still running the company, I did like. Was this commercial though? Like, was this like an internal commercial that would have just been for like military officials? Because it's not like we see like commercials on television of like, like Raytheon or promoting like military stuff to the public or anything. So I wasn't sure who that commercial was meant for. So Jenny's kind of getting in a like. fighting with Victoria. So Victoria kind of uses Carapax to intimidate her, and I think he maybe puts his hand on her or something, and she's saying "Let me go" or whatever. And so when I should set up that Jaime's sister is she's like, I got to take a dump, so I'm going to dump in the fancy restroom that I'm not supposed to use, and you're going to be a lookout.
You're risk their job for that.
So while he's on the lookout, he overhears this conversation. So once Carapax grabs Jenny, he comes to her defense and is like, hey, let her go. So Victoria promptly, I don't know if she owns the hotel and fires Jaime and his sister, or if she just has the power to tell the hotel officials they fire these two. But anyway, she gets them fired, because for interfering. So as Jenny leaves the hotel, she thanks Jaime for defending her, and she tells him to contact her the next day, and she might be able to get him a job at Cord Industries, and she gives him her phone number. So back home, Jaime kind of looks up Jenny online, and we can see that he's developing a crush on her. We also get a scene at night where he's talking to his dad. I don't remember their exact conversation, but basically his dad's proud of him, and he says the Reyes family will always persevere, that kind of thing. So the next day, Jaime goes to Cord Industries with his whole family cheering him on. And this was in the trailer too, where they're embarrassing him, cheering him on as he goes in the building or whatever. Okay, so I wrote, the receptionist is a casually racist Karen who assumes Jaime is a delivery boy, despite the fact that he's wearing a suit, and pronounces his name wrong even when he corrects her, because she's like, Jamie, and he's like, oh, actually it's Jaime, and she's like, okay, Jamie, goes through I had a problem with it. Just the whole the whole casual racism thing. I'm like, in this instance, it's just so silly that I'm like, she would not have thought he was a delivery boy. I don't know. I thought it was very hokey.
Yeah, I mean, unless she was just so racist that she went out of her way to call him a delivery boy.
But even, and we'll get to it too, but Susan Sarandon in this movie, another part of her mustache twirling thing, she's the same way, just casually racist, says these things that you're like, really? Oh, okay. I mean, I don't know. I just thought that was very cartoony and had me rolling my eyes a little bit. But so as he's waiting, we get a scene where Jenny puts on almost like a radioactive scientist suit or whatever that covers her body and face. Yeah. And she infiltrates the room that's holding the Scarab. So apparently they did find the Scarab in the Arctic region, and now it's in this facility. And she steals the Scarab, and she places it in a fast food container that belonging to who we know as Dr. Sanchez. But before she can get out of the building, that scientist does notice that the Scarab is gone, and he's hits the alarm, and he's lock down the building. So Jaime runs up to Jenny in the building, and she's she knows they're going to be watching her, so she gives the container to him, and she's like, hey, I can help you out or whatever, or pay you or whatever, but you got to take this, protect or what, and don't open it, whatever you do, don't open it. So then back at his house, his family immediately convinces him to open the container. So both his sister and his uncle Rudy touch the Scarab and look at it, and nothing happens. But when Jaime touches it, the Scarab painfully melds with him, turning him into the Blue Beetle. You also kind of get a glimpse of that scene in the trailers. Yeah,
his family was... I know they were kind of freaking out. They were freaking out, but I would be freaking out. I'd be like, oh my God, are you going to die? What's going on?
Yeah, it does look like it's really hurting him, you know?
His parents are just like, oh my God.
Our furniture. Our roof. I did think it's funny that he does in the scene end up like falling and breaking the table.
Yeah.
And like before he gets back, they're already like screwing the legs back on the table. Like that's the priority. Like we got to fix this table. So yeah, as his family is freaking out, Jaime can hear the voice of the Scarab, which is named Kaji Da. I will say, maybe my hearing's bad or just I could never make it out. But like as I'm watching this movie, I could never like understand exactly what they were saying. Yeah. But apparently that's it. It's Kaji Da.
Okay.
The suit propels Jaime into space as it's calibrating the suit or whatever the functions of the suit. So yeah, it propels him all the way out into space, and then it makes Jaime fall to Earth, and he's like, oh, I'm on fire or whatever, but apparently the suit's fireproof or whatever. So this, though, I thought was silly. So it drops him, and it doesn't even like start to slow down. Once he gets like a couple inches above the ocean surface, it just stops him, and he's like, "Oh, I'm fine." I'm like, "No, you're dead. I don't care if you're in that suit. You were going like terminal velocity, and you just stopped. Like it's like when Iron Man gets hit really hard in the Iron Man suit, and you're just like, well, he's just a bloody pulp inside that suit.
Right, exactly. The suit might be fine, but he's dead.
He's dead. He's 100% dead, and Jaime is 100% just organs like busted inside of his suit at this point. But
just liquid.
It's one of those things you just got to go with. So then it like flies him like all over the place, like he's hitting things in the water, and eventually it propels him into the city, and he falls like through a car. And then he stands up, and this is the scene we get in the trailer where he gets hit by the bus, but the suit protects him and just like cuts the bus in half. And luckily, nobody was in the middle of the bus at that time. He's like, "Oh no, everybody's fine." It's weird. I just rewatched Shang-Chi not long ago, and it has that scene too where the bus gets kind of cut in half. So. After that, the suit takes Jaime, because I guess it's like, oh, I've completed my function, so I'll just take him back home. So the suit takes Jaime back home and dumps him butt naked in front of his family. This is really the only drawback to him getting this powers is every time the suit comes off, he's naked. You always have to have a plan. When he wakes up, his family, of course, is all surrounding him, even though he's like naked. I guess they put like a towel over him or whatever. He gets up and he goes to his room and gets dressed, and he does notice like the Scarab, like sticking out of his back, like it's all fused in his spine and everything. So he freaks out and he decides, he's got to find out how to get this out of him, and he's like, well, Jenny is the only one who's going to know how to get it out. So. He's going to go see Jenny. And then he goes outside, and then Rudy notices that he took his taco truck. So he's like freaking out. I don't know exactly where this scene happened, but it had to have been somewhere around here. At some point, there's like this party where Victoria promises an army general that she's going to supply him with a bunch of OMAC suits.
Yeah.
Which to me, couldn't she have waited until she like completed those suits before making the promise?
I mean, I just figured that's how business works. They want their money.
I guess. But yeah, she promises him all these suits, and she introduces him to Carapax. But then shortly after, Carapax, takes her over privately and tells her about the theft of the Scarab by Jenny. And so she's like, tells him, you better get it back or whatever. So when Jaime pulls up to Cord Industries, this was a little bit convenient, but I guess he sees that Jenny's like hiding behind like some of these cars, like on the outskirts of the building. Like seems like she's hiding from somebody, and he's like, says like, "Hey, what are you doing?" So like she immediately jumps in the truck and she's like, "We got to get out of here." And he's like, "What's going on?" And then like all these soldiers show up and are just like machine gun fire into the truck. Yeah. Which this happens in some of these movies where like, a private like rich person will like basically own their own private army. But I'm like, Do the police not get involved at all when soldiers are machine gunning on the streets?
I have no idea, but I figure if you're a rich person, you can do almost anything. You could have a private army, I guess.
But anyway, they do get away in the truck. And Jaime takes Jenny back to his house, surrounded by his family. She says that if they want any hope of removing the Scarab, they will need a key that's being held at Cord Industries. Rudy is against it because he believes the government will either kill or imprison Jaime, which he's right on the money there.
Yeah.
But he's like, if we're going to do this, like, he believes he has some equipment that can help them get past security. Now, this... I do kind of like George Lopez in this movie, but I think they make his character capable of a little bit too much, especially as we get later on in the movie. But the fact that, he happens to be this guy who's paranoid of the government, so, of course, in his spare time, he's making all these machines to hide from the government and do all this, stuff, I'm like, that's a little convenient, but okay, whatever.
There's always some, convenient tech person or something in these movies.
Yeah, there's always the man in the chair or whatever they say that, can do this impossible stuff. So Rudy drives Jaime and Jenny to Cord Industries. And, to get his device in the back to work, he, kicks it. But I thought this was funny. So this huge, device he's got in his back, basically all it does is make all the security monitors in Cord Industries display this weird Spanish cartoon. And I'm like, wouldn't the security people be like, okay, something weird's going on, fan out and see what's causing this?
Yeah.
Instead of just be like, it'd be one thing if it took over the cameras and just made it like they do in some spy movies where it just stays on the pre-recorded image. Yeah. I'm like, that would make sense, but now this would arouse the guard's suspicion.
Exactly.
But no, it for some reason doesn't, and it allows Jaime and Jenny to go in there. So yeah, they get in there, and Jenny ends up stealing this watch, like an Apple Watch or something, that belonged to her father, and apparently that's the key that she needed. So as they're leaving the building, they're confronting by Carapax. And so I thought this was a bit weird too. So Carapax, as we mentioned, he's got the big metal arm. He's got all these metal implants, and we'll eventually see why he has those. But he touches this button on the metal thing on the back of his neck, and it shoots out all these armor things, and makes him all powerful. And so this isn't quite the OMAC suit,
right?
But I'm like, this is powerful enough. They could just sell this technology to the military.
People pretty well with this stuff. Yeah,
this is all they need. They don't need the fancy OMAC suit. This is really all they need. And
exactly.
So I thought that was a little bit silly that he's already this powerful. Oh yeah, I even wrote in my notes here. Question: couldn't they just sell this technology to the military?
Yeah,
they really could. So they get in this fight. They knock around a bunch of cars. Jenny escapes and goes to Rudy's truck. So the Scarab gives Jaime all sorts of martial arts moves and weapons to knock down Carapax. And my thing is is Jaime is he just along for the ride? That's the part I didn't know. Is the suit just because he doesn't know martial arts,
right?
So it seems like the suit is just basically controlling him. I guess maybe you can say it's feeding how to do this into his brain, and then he's doing it. But I wasn't sure.
Well, I know the suit is sentient, and then he obviously is. I think they mentioned that they kind of melded together. So maybe it's a little cross between both of them, his intentions and the suit's abilities or something. I'm not sure.
Okay. Yeah, they do mention later that the suit basically entwines with his brain.
Yeah.
So yeah, eventually he's able to knock down Carapax, but then the suit basically goes to kill Carapax, gives him this big sword, and Jaime pleads with it to stop, and he's like, we don't kill.
Because earlier he had that scene where he was going to kill somebody. Did we mention that? where he was going to kill somebody and...
well, this is that scene.
Right.
And then later on they call it back at the end of the movie, yeah.
Confused.
So yeah, eventually he pleads with it not to kill, and eventually the suit's like agrees to that or whatever.
Right.
But then that allows Carapax to get back up and beat the crap out of Jaime and get the upper hand. So then Carapax goes to kill Jaime, but this is when Rudy, like, I thought this was a bit. So Rudy's driving his truck, and at first I'm like, oh, he's just gonna hit him, which makes sense. But he's like, no, Jenny, when I say so, hit the handbrake, and we're gonna like do like this 180 degree turn, and the crap machine that's in the back of my truck is just gonna fly out and hit him. I'm like, yeah, you could do that, or you could just hit him with the truck, which would have made more sense. He's probably like, oh, my taco, I can't do it. My precious taco, I can't do it. But yeah, anyway, the machine hits Carapax, and they get out of Dodge. So then they all travel to Jenny's childhood home, and she uses the key she got to access her father, Ted Kord's Beetle cave. So Rudy, he's kind of amazed that Ted Kord was the Blue Beetle. And apparently, like, he was a big fan of the Blue Beetle. Jaime has a line where he says, with these, like, inventions here, it just seems like he was a lame version of Batman. And that's where you get the scene from the trailer where Rudy's like, Batman's a fascist or whatever. So Rudy boots up Ted's computer, which, when was this computer built is what I want to know. I mean, it kind of does remind you like certain versions of the Bat computer, but again, it looks like it was built out of like 90 computers from like the 80s or something. It's got like the thick monitors and stuff. I'm like, okay, they were going for a visual here, but I don't know. I want to know the history of when this computer was built. So Rudy's like, he boots up the computer and he's like, it's going to take me a while to, search through the information on this computer. I forgot to mention, so when they saved Jaime, like, he was naked again. Conveniently, he did, like, Rudy had extra clothes in his truck, so he put those on. But then, like, Rudy's like, man, your clothes stink. And he's like, well, they're yours. And then Jenny's like, oh, I think my dad has some extra clothes you can wear. So he's going to go change. Before he changes, we get a scene where he's looking at his face in the mirror, and like he had a scratch from that fight, and we see that the Scarab like can heal like the scratch or whatever, you know. So we get a scene with Jenny and Jaime where she reveals that because they're looking at like these paintings her mom did. Apparently, her mom died when she was 6, and then shortly after, her father left, never to return again. And does she even know, like, does she think her father's dead, or does she think he just, like, abandoned her?
They don't really say, like, Susan Sarandon, like, forces the issue that her father abandoned her, but she doesn't exactly say herself what she believes her father, I don't know.
Yeah, I was kind of curious about that. I don't think they ever really say for sure. She says that she's envious of Jaime because her home, even though it's big, like she's like, this home is filled with things, but your home is filled with love because, you know, she saw how much his family loves him and everything. We get a scene where they almost kiss, but of course they're interrupted by Rudy. So yeah, it's revealed that the Scarab, you know, it has to like choose the person. So we find out it did originally choose Dan Garrett. I guess the Scarab wouldn't choose Ted, so that's why Ted ended up, you know, using his inventions to fight crime rather than the Scarab. Now, I was a little, because either in the opening credits in the headlines, or maybe they mention it here, it seems like Ted knew Dan Garrett and maybe was attempting to help him, like, separate from the Scarab, but never figured it out. They didn't go into detail, but I remember seeing something where, like, it seemed like they knew each other and there was some sort of history between those first two.
Why would he want to separate from the Scarab, though? Scarab seems like pretty awesome.
Well, and that's what we get here in a minute with Jaime, and I'm like, yeah, this happens in a lot of, I feel, superhero movies where there's this reluctant hero which gets awesome powers, and then he's like, "Wah, I got awesome powers. What am I gonna do?
I can do anything. Oh no."
Yeah. So yeah, Rudy discovers that the Scarab intertwines with the host's brain and cannot be removed without killing the host. Yeah, and I even wrote here, Jaime whines about being given powers and storms outside. I thought it was so silly.
I dare somebody to give me power.
I know. I'm like,
I'll flying 24/7.
I'll even take those crappy Cyclops eyes powers where I have to wear shades the whole time, or else I'm just destroying everything. Even though, I don't even know what I'd do with them, but I'd still take them.
Yeah. You have one bad day, you can go nuts.
Right, exactly. That fire won't light?
You cut me off in traffic, huh?
Exactly. I also thought this was funny, where so Jaime storms off, and Jenny's about to go after him, but Rudy's like, no, I'll go get him. I think I know where he'll go, because apparently Rudy has a thing for rooftops. Because we saw him on the roof of his house. Apparently he just likes rooftops, and whenever he's upset, he's gonna go to a rooftop.
And this happens in a lot of movies, it's superhero movies especially, where they're like, "Oh, I know where he is," and it's a rooftop.
I think it's because most of them can either fly or swing or something, and they're like, "Yeah, the rooftop."
They can see the city from there. Yeah,
that's true too. Even Batman's up high a lot of times, looking over his city, So yeah, Jaime apologizes to Rudy and says yeah, I actually think you're pretty awesome, and they kind of make up. And I don't remember all the conversation there, but as you were noted earlier, I know there was a conversation where Rudy talked about, when he was a kid, I think he crossed the border with his family at 10 years old, and then for the next 20 years, they struggled and but again, the Reyes family never gives up and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So as Jenny joins them, I thought this was very convenient. She joins them, and conveniently, they see Victoria's helicopter fly right overhead of where they are towards the city, and they surmise that, they must be going after Jaime's family.
Yeah, that's super convenient.
I'm like, because when I saw that helicopter, I'm like, oh, okay, Victoria discovered that, she must have went to this house, and now they're going to land and fight him at this house. But no, they just happen to be flying right over that house.
That's another superhero trope, though. Whenever something has to happen, they just look out the window and they're like, oh, there it is, let's go get him. It's such a common thing. And this is a massive city. This happened in Spider-Man also, all these movies, where, yeah, the plot has to move forward with some sort of convenient thing happening.
This was not only super convenient that it just happened to go right over the house they're in, but also that helicopter happens to have neon lights on it, because otherwise it would just be it's just a helicopter.
Yeah.
But no, it's Victoria's helicopter specifically has neon lights on the bottom. It's that's her helicopter, and it's going to the city. I can only assume they're going to kill my family.
Oh man,
it was just. Yeah.
Love it. I mean, this is a massive city with millions of people.
It was just so convenient that, okay, so Victoria, they were, of course, right. So Victoria sics her soldiers on the family, and I wrote, casually tells them to round them up, because, again, casual racism, round up those brown people, which they do. So back on the rooftop, Jaime is struggling to get the suit to come out. But, I guess I kind of skipped over this because Rudy was mentioning that, the suit will always try to keep him alive. Mm-hmm. Which, to me, again, you were talking about, why whine about this? Oh, now I have this suit that's going to try to protect me, like, whenever I'm in danger. That's a pretty good thing, if you ask me. Like, I don't think I'd be whining about that.
There's been no downside, except for the whole transformation part.
Yeah, except for having to be butt naked also whenever the suit comes off. But yeah, the transformation looked a bit painful. But
but that's already done, so what are you
that part's done.
You want to undo it? That's going to be pretty bad, too.
Yeah, exactly. But he's like, figures... oh, if I jump off the roof, the suit's going to come out to save me. So he does the leap of faith, and of course it works. So Jaime shows up to save his family. He asks Kaji Da, of course the Scarab, to give him non-lethal weapons. So she gives him like these sonic cannons, I guess, to beat the bad guys with. Mm-hmm. And also like he shoots like these large kind of like horseshoe things that'll like, nail them against surfaces and hold them. So Jaime easily wins until Victoria orders Carapax, again, this was kind of convenient, to shoot him with like this large claw type weapon, which, first of all, it was convenient that they would have even invented that weapon for some reason, but also... It almost causes Jaime to lose his abilities, really. Yeah. Which I'm like, why would it?
Exactly. Like, the suit should be more powerful than whatever this claw is, because the claw is from lesser technology, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I don't understand how that worked.
and it also, like, the suit's supposed to protect him, but as soon as he gets hit with that, it takes his mask off. I'm like, you're not protecting him, suit. Yeah. You just made him very vulnerable. What the hell are you doing? So it's like this magical claw almost had the ability to affect this suit that has way more high-tech stuff in it. And I was just like, you lost me a bit, movie. Yeah. That doesn't really make sense. Mm-hmm. So during the fight, and I guess this would have happened like moments before Jaime was hit with that claw, at some point a candle was knocked over and the house is like burning down. But also Jaime's dad starts having a heart attack. And so we get kind of this sad scene where like his sister is like crying, holding on to his dad while he's being dragged away, seeing that his dad is like having a heart attack. And then we get this like slow motion montage of the EMTs trying and failing to save his father's life. And then it's like the next morning, and the family's like gathered around the house, and Jaime's grandmother tells his sister that, hey, you need to stop crying. You can cry later.
About your dead father?
Yeah. Stop crying about your dead father already, my son. Because we need to toughen up right now. We need to fight, and we need to go save Jaime. And I wrote, right on cue, Jenny shows up and says, hey, I think I can help out with that.
And this is where I say, like, suspension of disbelief really plays a part, because like 3 elderly people and his sister and then Jenny Cord, like they all like suit up and everything, or like team up to like go infiltrate and everything. It's wild. In this Blue Beetle thing.
I especially had a hard time with the grandmother. Yeah. Because I'm like, somebody obviously thought, oh, this will add some much needed humor to the movie or whatever. Yeah. But it just made me roll my eyes and be like, you shouldn't have done that. Yeah. It was silly. I didn't like it.
Yeah, she was doing too much.
Yeah. So Jenny takes the family to the Beetle ship, which I actually thought this thing looked cool.
I thought it was all right, but it was just funny that they were all sitting in it, like these elderly people. Like,
yeah, that's true.
Let's go get them, guys.
There is definitely a silliness to it, which makes you roll your eyes a little bit. But and this Beetle contains a bunch of weapons they can use. So the sister grabs what looks like a old like Nintendo Power Glove kind of.
Oh right, yeah. And she figured out how to use it pretty easily.
Yes, and it basically has like offensive and defensive capabilities. It can either project like a energy shield or like a fist.
Yeah, a shield that people will not shoot around at all. They'll just shoot the shield, just like Wonder Woman.
They do graze her shoulder.
Oh yeah, a little bit, yeah. But not those legs. The legs are okay.
Right. And they also set up this thing where they're like, she's like, oh, there's some bubble gum, and like I think Jenny's like, oh yeah, that's something my dad made, and like it'll come into play later, but they don't really tell you what it's about right then. And we get a scene where the granny grabs a Gatling gun. Again, I hated this.
Too many questions. Like I was like, that Gatling gun must be huge. Like it must weigh a ton, and she's carrying it like it's nothing.
That's the other thing. Is like she's an old woman. She could not have packed this big old Gatling.
Right.
So, and like they also make this whole thing about Granny used to be a revolutionary down in Mexico or something.
Doesn't mean she's still got the body for it.
And like, she's like, dude. I hated that whole subplot. I was like, I didn't mind the granny up until this point in the movie where I'm like, she should have just stayed home.
Yeah, I mean, look, even if she came on the journey, like, she doesn't have to do all that.
Right, she could have just stayed in the ship and done something. But yeah, I definitely thought that was too silly. I didn't like it. Okay. So apparently Jenny says that Jaime is being held in some sort of island fortress. Apparently Victoria owns her own island or something. And the plan is for Jenny and the sister to blow up a power generator while the others cause a distraction. I wrote, Rudy and later on the mother somehow know how to fly this Beetle jet.
Yeah.
I had a big problem. Like I said before, I was already kind of like rolling my eyes on the fact that Rudy was this guy who could make all this equipment to hide from the government and like with the whole surveillance stuff. But then here I'm like, okay, where did he learn how to fly?
Yeah.
And this is a one of a kind jet too. It's not like even if he knew how to fly like a regular like jet. I don't even know if that would translate to flying this thing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Exactly.
And so it's just like too convenient.
Like with stuff like this, I would need like a manual. I need like 5 hours to figure this out, like maybe more.
Probably years.
Yeah.
But no, he just and not only does he automatically know how to do it. Like later on, I said when they're escaping, the mother will be flying it.
All right, your turn.
Yeah, it's very intuitive,
user friendly. It's like an iPhone.
So Jaime wakes up. He's attached to like this circular ring, and Victoria orders her scientist, who she keeps calling Sanchez, even though he's like kind of meekly says, that's not my name, but she's like, Sanchez, get to it. So he's going to transfer the code from Jaime to her system. And she mentions that like, oh, it was nice that you were able to wake up the Scarab because now we can get its code. Mm-hmm. So it's like, it makes me wonder, like, what was their plan otherwise to get the Scarab open?
I guess they didn't know what they're doing.
They would have just like kept cycling in people and be like, does it choose you? Does it choose you?
Just throw it at somebody.
And also, there's also a line hooked from him up to Carapax. So apparently the code will not only like transfer into her like phone or tablet or whatever, but it will also transfer into Carapax and turn him into the OMAC. Carapax is holding a locket with a picture of his family. Let's see. Okay. So now the family crash lands on the island. And, I mentioned that, the last couple movies we did, like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse had like a lot of hip-hop and like, music that wasn't really for me. And this movie also had some music that wasn't really for me, but they did throw me a bone here because Rudy plays Jumpstart My Heart by Motley Crue. And they start like taking out people with this Beetle jet because it also has like these legs on it and they can basically just like stomp like guys, which I kind of liked. The only thing I hated is the end where he's like, oh, I'm going like in incognito mode or something. And it's like activate bug fart or something, and it like makes it basically just a fart joke where it does like the fart sound effect, and it like gasses all the guys that are left. And again, I'm like, really? Did you need that? It's just like another Granny with a gun level type of humor, and I'm like, didn't need that. So Jenny and the sister sneak in, and they discover a room full of OMAC suits that are basically being powered up by the code being siphoned from Jaime, because he's in like the room right above them. Victoria's scientist, again, who she calls Sanchez, even though it's not his name, tells her that Jaime could die, and she's basically, again, mustache twirling. Well, that's what I want. Yeah. Like, we can, take the suit off his corpse or whatever she says, So Jenny and the sister plant bombs in that room with the OMAC suits, which I think also contains like the power generator they were after or whatever too. So as like we get like this thing where we can see like, oh, this much of the code has been transferred over, countdown or going up to 100% or whatever. So as it's getting close, we get the scene where we go inside Jaime's head, and we get a scene where he basically gets to say goodbye to his father. I don't exactly remember their conversation. Again, I think it was just basically this. His father was proud of him and said it wasn't his time, and the whole thing about, the Reyes family will triumph and all that good stuff. Also in that vision, there's a vision of the Beetle suit. And so Jaime's like, I know what I got to do. I got to jump and touch the suit. And as soon as he touches the Beetle suit, like at the same time, the bombs go off. Carapax receives the rest of the code, which allows him to start transforming into OMAC. And also, I think that must free Jaime from his restraints as well.
Something, I'm not sure how he got out, but maybe that was it.
Yeah. At some point, Carapax drops the locket he was holding with his family, and Victoria picks it up. So the scientist takes pity on Jaime and allows him to escape the room. And then when Victoria asks, Sanchez, what are you doing? He's like, my name's not Sanchez, it's blah, 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 blah. And he lists, I don't know, he's one of those people with, 5 or 6 names, yeah. And he basically busts, the mechanism for opening the door. And then Jaime, as he's, looking through the glass in the door, sees Carapax, who's now fully, OMAC, kill the scientist. So Jaime, he runs away. And he discovers that he can't use the suit at that moment because it's rebooting. We get a scene where Jenny and the sister end up getting separated because a section of the ceiling falls down. Yeah. And I believe what happens is Jenny kind of gets pinned under some rubble or something, and Victoria is able to capture her.
Okay.
I think I'm remembering that right. Jaime gets cornered and is almost killed by a group of soldiers when here it comes. He gets saved by Granny with the Gatling gun. Yeah. Again, I did hate this, but it happened. Also, I'm glad they established that his suit was bulletproof, because she just shoots these guys with the Gatling gun and he's directly behind them.
Yeah, I was like, she could have shot him up real good.
Although, at that point, he did not have his mask, so she could have definitely killed him. So Jaime and his grandma, I believe they end up going to the ship, because I remember Jaime has a spot where he reunites with his mom, and his mom gives him a speech about, using his pain to kick the bad guy's butt or whatever. So now we get a scene with the sister that we referenced earlier. She's shot at by this big group of soldiers, and so she uses the Nintendo Power Glove shield, and we do get... at least one bullet goes through and nicks her in the shoulder or whatever.
Yeah.
But now Jaime's suit has finished rebooting, and so he easily beats all these bad guys up. And the last one, his sister uses the old glove punch on. I might be missing some stuff in here, but now basically Carapax shows up and he starts to fight Jamie, and they bust through a wall. Jaime ends up knocking Carapax around with a giant sword that he makes. That's also in the trailer where he makes that that big Final Fantasy type sword.
Yeah, pretty cool sword.
Yeah. Although he makes a sword, but then it basically just shoots like blue energy out of it instead of like actually slicing him.
Yeah, when he hits somebody with it, like he doesn't kill them.
Right.
But it's pretty powerful. It still knocks him out.
It does, but I thought that was a little lame. I'm like, if you make a big sword like that, I wanted to see it slice through something.
You should cut him in half.
Should at least slice off some of his armor or something, you know. Eventually, Carapax ends up getting the upper hand again. He almost kills Jaime again, but Rudy shows up and like throws some bricks at him.
Yeah, two like circular balls or something.
Something like that. and like Carapax like launches like an explosion at Rudy, and like Jaime believes that Rudy is killed. Oh, my stupid alarm. Okay, so now we're in the helicopter. Victoria has Jenny held at gunpoint in her helicopter and reveals that she has the Beetle code saved on her. I guess I don't know if it's her phone or a tablet or some sort of device she has. She's like, I got the code right here.
I would think that code would be like way too big for her phone, probably.
This is another thing I thought was convenient is like, apparently she doesn't use the cloud, or you know, you would think something this important, like it would either be saving to like some sort of well-protected server somewhere, or to the cloud or something, you know, other than just like, oh no, it's in this device, and if something happens to this device, I'm screwed.
Right.
So Jenny is chewing the bubble gum from earlier. And when she spits it out, I thought this was silly too. It expands and basically envelops her and Victoria in like this big like bubble, like the gum, right? It like expands around them, and so that causes the helicopter to crash. But they're basically protected enough by like being wrapped in this big like wad of gum. How does that? I want to know the physics of that gum, though. It's like it doesn't expand like as long as she's chewing it, but then like when it cools down to a certain temperature when it's in the regular air or something, it expands.
I mean, look, in these movies, like there's always like some hero who has like 100 years plus future tech that somehow he hasn't introduced to anybody in the world. Like he doesn't use it for good, like in other ways.
You know what? That's true. Like he was just beating low-level criminals with this stuff. When really he probably could have found some sort of application that would have like saved people's lives.
Plane crashes, whatever. Like
exactly. So Jaime eventually gets Carapax down. And he's going to kill him, but this is like when you referenced earlier. Now the thing's reversed, where now the Kaji Da, the Scarab, stops him and says, "We don't kill." And she's like, also, I got a glimpse of Carapax's backstory when the code was being transferred, and he shares that with Jaime. Okay, so we get to these series of flashbacks, and so basically it turns out that when he was a kid, Carapax's mom was killed by some Cord Industries bombs that went off in his country. And then he was basically turned into a child soldier who worked for Victoria. And, okay, I wrote, question, do their ages make sense given this revelation?
Right.
Because I don't know how old Carapax is, but like, he seems like an older dude to me.
Yeah.
And I don't know how old Susan Sarandon is, but I'm like, is there really like, you know, at least a 20-year age gap between these two to where this would make sense?
I don't know, maybe. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I wasn't sure. I was like, it just seemed weird to me. And then eventually, I guess Carapax was injured by a landmine, and that's when Victoria saved his life and gave him the metal arm and all the implants and all that.
Yeah.
So Jaime spares Carapax, and Jenny destroys Victoria's, you know, phone/device that held all the Beetle code on it. Rudy and the family show up on the Beetle jet, so Rudy is alive. He was hanging on the bottom of the ship. Jenny gets on board, but like Jaime, like he should have just got on board then, but I think he's like, no, I want to see how this like ends with Carapax and Victoria or whatever. And so Carapax ends up grabbing Victoria, He takes back the locket, which I think had a picture of like him as a baby with his mom or something. And then Jaime realizes that Carapax has overloaded his suit and plans to kill both himself and Victoria. So he runs to the jet, and they all narrowly avoid getting killed in the explosion. And this is where his mother takes control of the jet and is flying. This is another thing that happens in a lot of these movies is like, we're just going to overload the core of the suit, or, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Which, okay, why is this an option on these suits? But okay, whatever. And also, like, Carapax, he kind of takes, like, I forget what exactly he says to Jaime, but he kind of takes, like, a good guy turn right at the end there. But then he's like, well, if you don't hurry, you're totally going to die, and I don't really care.
Yeah.
So now we cut to we're kind of getting to the resolution. We cut to the family back at the aftermath of their burnt house. All their neighbors end up showing up and throw them a big old like block party. Jenny shows up on her motorcycle and gives Rudy a new pickup truck, a new Taco. Of course, it's blue. And then Jaime's like, let me walk you to your motorcycle. And they finally have their kiss. And then I don't remember what the suit says, but the suit notices like that he's getting a boner.
Oh yeah.
He's like, "Oh, I detect a rush of blood to your nether regions or whatever." I'm like, okay. And then of course his family sees the kiss, and they're all hooting and hollering too. And then we end the movie with him flying into the sky. Apparently, she's going to go back to her house because she wants to look at her mom's paintings again or something. And that's credits. We do get a mid-credit stinger. So mid-credit scene, back in the Beetle cave, they threw me another song I recognize. All Out of Love by Air Supply comes on, which I don't know why exactly. Because, like, okay, it's one thing that, like, okay, the computer, for whatever, flips back on. Why would that song start playing?
Oh, no.
Anyway, All Out of Love by Air Supply starts playing, and eventually, like, it starts, like, skipping and stops. But basically, the Beetle computer flips on, and it reveals that Ted Cord is still alive. It's like, get this message to Jenny and let her know that her father's still alive or whatever. So, I mean, if they make another one of these, that could be interesting. We'll get Ted Cord, and I think that's a big part of, like, again, I've never read any of the Jaime Reyes comics, but I think in at least some of them, Ted Cord kind of becomes his mentor and, like, teaches him to...
Okay.
How to be a superhero and kind of stuff like that. Now, AJ, did you make the mistake of waiting to the very end to see if...
No, I didn't even see the mid-credit scene.
Oh, you didn't?
Yeah, I left right after the movie.
Okay, the mid-credit scene was okay, but boy, did I take a bullet for you. It gets to the end credit stinger, and all it does is play that, that stupid, like, Spanish cartoon.
Oh, okay.
It plays that thing, which is just like this stupid little thing that lasts like maybe 10 seconds, and it's just dumb.
Okay.
So yeah, if you do go watch this in theaters, if you haven't gone yet, do not. You can watch that mid-credit one, but do not stay to the end. I just, if nothing else, I saved you. So AJ, did I miss anything that you think would be worth talking about?
I think you covered everything. I don't know. I'll mention that, I really like the whole use of the family in this movie for the most part. Like there were some, of course, the grandmother.
Right. Could have done without the granny with the gallon gun.
Yeah. But I mean, all in all, I think the family really helped give this movie a lot of heart.
Yeah, I agree. If there's one strength to this movie, it is like their chemistry and their dynamic. And like I said, I think the standouts for me was George Lopez. Besides the fact that they gave him a little too much knowledge, I think. Yeah. I did like his character, and I think he was good comic relief. Yeah. And I also did like his kind of back and forth with his sister. Mm-hmm. I thought that relationship was fun as well. So if they made another one of these, I would want to see at least those characters continue.
Yeah, I'd be cool with that.
Yeah. Okay, AJ, it's time for the official scoring round. What would you give Blue Beetle on a scale of 1 to 10?
I'd give it a solid 6.8.
I'm close. I'm 6.5.
All right.
Yeah, it's one of those where, like, again, I think it. Maybe it is because I went in with low expectations, but I watched it and I was like, it was fine.
Yeah.
It was like I did not mind that. It was enjoyable enough. Again, if I ever revisit this thing, it'll be a long time from now. I don't know if I'll ever like really feel like, oh, I got to revisit this. But and I do think it's something you can wait for streaming 100% for. But I do recommend watching it. I think it was fun enough. And like I said, I'm kind of indifferent to if they do decide to, make this the first step into James Gunn's DCU and actually, carry forward with this character. But if they do, I won't be sad about it.
Yeah.
I think there's story potential there, and but if it does end up being a one and done, fine. Yeah. Originally this movie was going to be a straight to HBO Max.
Oh, really?
Type of movie, okay. And then they decided to give it a theatrical release. Like, did you think, did it feel cheap to you?
No, not at all.
Yeah, I didn't really feel that either. I mean, I assume it probably did have a lower budget than a lot of their movies.
That CGI looked really good.
Yeah, there was nothing I saw that made me go, ooh, that looked real bad or anything.
The Flash looked way worse.
That's true. There was no bad CGI babies in this, at least. No. I mean, maybe it's because they, limited how much stuff they did or used it, sparingly enough to where they never had to, stretch themselves too thin or whatever. But no, there was never a part where I was like, ooh, that looked really bad with the CGI or anything. So, no, I think, again, I don't think it has as much CGI as in a lot of their other movies. Right. But, no, nothing that looked terrible to me.
Yeah, pretty good.
All right, AJ, I think that's it. Should we wrap this bad boy up?
Sure.
All right, guys. Well, we thank you very, very much. We like doing these reviews. If you have any, suggestions, things you'd like us to review, let us know, and we'll. I won't guarantee we'll do it depending on what you recommend, but we'll definitely look into it. I actually don't know what our next movie will be because, with the strikes and things, a lot of things are getting postponed and. Originally Aquaman 2, I believe, was supposed to come out in December, but apparently they've been having a lot of troubles. They've reshot things in that movie. Like, first of all, I'm not excited about that movie either.
Yeah,
I think it's going to be bad. And I didn't like the first one. But, I would review it for the show, but I don't think that's coming out this year. I really don't.
Oh, man.
But, well, just between all the reshoots and trouble they're having there and like the actor strike, which I've heard like a lot of people expect this strike to go like kind of towards the end of the year now.
Well, what about Loki season 2? Like that's already shot, right?
Oh yeah, we should be able to do that.
Yeah.
I forgot about Loki season 2, so that should save us a little bit.
Yeah, be good.
If Dune Part 2 sticks and comes out this year, I would definitely do Dune.
Yeah.
Do you want to watch The Origin of Willy Wonka?
If it comes down to that, we'll do it.
Oh, God, I hope not. Please, no. But yeah, guys, if you will, please subscribe to us both on the YouTube channel. And if you want to listen to us in audio form, you can subscribe on your podcast service of choice. Give us those thumbs up, 5-star reviews, all that good stuff. Man, I keep saying, I'm still on Twitter, X or whatever. It seems like each week there's something revealed, like where he's trying to make it even worse. I've never, first of all, not enough people follow me that I'm, blocking people. Or I don't think I would even ever care enough to block anybody. But, the talk is that he's thinking about taking away, that block functionality, which to me, I'm like... I don't care, but I'm I know a lot of people would not use Twitter if not for having that blog functionality. So it seems like you'd be losing a lot. It does almost seem like he's trying to tank it.
It does seem like it.
And then I don't know if there's any validity to it, but I saw a thing on there today that said he was proposing possibly making it to where like you would have to like verify your account, like some dating sites do, where you actually have to like take a picture of yourself, like that kind of thing. And I'm like, I wouldn't even stick with it if they made it that stringent.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It almost does seem like he's trying to tank it.
It does seem like it. I don't know. You know what? I mean, I have a conspiracy theory about this.
Okay.
I think that what if the government saw that Twitter is too powerful of a tool for people to like, get together and like, be active on. Like they can activate their forces quickly, right? People. And maybe they were like, hey, you Patsy, why don't you pretend that you're buying Twitter and then we can tank it. And, we'll pay out the people who actually did start the company. They won't know anything about this or whatever. But then, we can just destroy this whole platform that's been causing us issues. Because the government, it's been nothing but a pain in the ass for the government anyway, probably. Like Twitter. For many governments around the world, actually.
I don't know, because I feel like for them, they're like, oh, we got another tool to, in a way, spy on people. And in a way, like, possibly, like... Russia uses social media to manipulate people. Our government uses social media to manipulate people. So they probably actually see it as a boon, just to another way to manipulate people.
Maybe.
Huh. We're becoming the George Lopez of this podcast.
It's just so hard to believe that somebody would buy this company for $44 billion, lose 3/4 of the value of the company, and then still keep shitting all over it to like make it worse and worse.
Well, and wasn't there a weird thing at first where like he entered into buying it and then he almost backed out, but that would have like cost him money, so he like went ahead and did it, and then like he did all these things that people hate, and I don't know. But anyway, still technically on there at Zach Jones Live if you're interested.
Oh man.
But anyway, I think that's going to do it for all of our shenanigans and poppycock this week. Please, please, please tune in again next week. Bye, guys.
Take care.